And why don't I, let's see, I have both. So real quickly, I'm gonna share my screen. And for those of you who didn't, if you didn't have a chance to sketch it out, let's see, I'll move that over there. Can everybody see this all right?
Yep.
Yes.
So as you guys probably know, I've painted this scene before once. And I like that painting. In fact, I've always been a little shocked that it hadn't sold yet because so many people comment on it. But you know, that's neither here nor there. But I'm always shocked that I still have it. I like it, but I thought it would be fun, probably more so for me than anybody, but to do it slightly different this time. And I also couldn't find my original sketch either because I wanted to show you guys that in comparison to my new sketch. But you know, the original sketch looks very much like the where did very much like the painting. It ended up being pretty close, which I'll bring up here real quick, which I know I shared with you guys. But, so you can see, so here's the original photo, and here's my painting that I did from that. You can see I modified quite a bit. I simplified what was going on down here with these plants. Let me get a pointer thing. I took out that banister kind of thing, and I simplified. I didn't really simplify. Well, I did kind of simplify. I kind of changed up how those little plant things and steps look a little bit between there and there. And having been to this place, I used to go here every day for a coffee and a toasted bagel with green chili cream cheese when I worked at the Old Town Basket and Rug Shop, which is just next door. So I knew what these windows looked like and what the door looked like. So even though in the photo the door's open, I kind of wanted to do it close. So I like this. I like this kind of oval window in the door. I also added in some reflections. We'll see how I feel about that. They're not in the photo, and I kind of like that dark back there of the windows. So we'll see how we deal with those. I may do some reflections because you can kind of see reflections of the trees up in this part, even though if we go to my new sketch, I've moved the umbrellas way over so they're in front of that bank of windows over on the left-hand side of the building. And once again, I really simplified the plant material down here. And I added a few things. If you look at the photo, this is fairly washed out. The umbrellas are fairly washed out. It was a really bright day. So even in this painting, I knocked that quite a bit back. I added this kind of curved shadow to help give these umbrellas some volume. And I think we'll do that again. But I mean, the main thing for me were these umbrellas. I like how they kind of dance across the page. They kind of go a little bit against sort of the standards of trying to suck someone in and getting it to go, getting them to go around, because you can sort of, if you're not careful, lead them off with these kind of shapes that do point out of the painting. But I think that by adding some stuff in around these, and then by knocking back this edge a little bit later, once we're kind of closer to the end of the painting, we'll get that compositional You know, I've got this shadow that I've adjusted over the original photo. You can see there is a little bit of an angled shadow back here, but I've really kind of angled it so you know, it's pulling you down into these umbrellas. I have this little swoopy thing, again, these things. And then hopefully this bit of tree here brings you back around. So that's kind of my thinking on this. Do you have any questions about it? Do you want me to? I haven't sketched it on my paper yet either. If some of you have not yet either, so I can leave the photo up if you'd like, or I can leave my sketch up, or I can do a combination of the two. Although it'll be pretty small, but any preferences?
I printed them both, so it doesn't matter to me.
Okay. Well, how about I leave the photo up, and I'm going to sketch mine out real quick on my paper, and then we get started.
Can you get your new sketch up that I'm not going to work from tonight, but I want to sketch?
Sure.
Yeah, that one. Thank you.
Yeah, what I'll do is, would it work if I, what am I looking for? I'm looking for this. Would it work if I did, oops, that's not the one I want. Let me close that one. Here we go. Would it help if I did, that may be too small, kind of a half and half? I'll get it to, let's see, I think that's, is that too small, or can you see both of them? By your silence, I'm going to say you're okay with both of them being up.
Looks good.
Okay.
I went away from my headphones, so I didn't know.
Oh, no worries. Does that work for you, Janie?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, and something I kind of did was I realized that this little point here of the umbrella, which you can see right there, is a little over halfway across. So I was kind of using this umbrella as a guide. So I kind of sketched it in first for those of you who are working on it out.
Diego, no. Let's be quiet.
and it's always kind of fun to see what changes between your sketch and your painting, you know, getting it drawn on your paper. I just realized that I may have made this umbrella on my paper a little bit bigger than, but that's okay. I don't mind. I don't mind that it's, so I may end up simplifying that foreground even more. We'll see. Anyway, it's just always kind of fun to see how things shake up. It's faint. There we go. I've been watching this really interesting art history show on YouTube called Perspectives. And it's not all hosted by the same guy, but there's a guy named, what's his name? Waldemar? That's a very butchered pronunciation of his family's originally from Poland. He grew up in London. And I can't think of his last name, how to pronounce it. I still can't. He's never pronounced it on the show. So I'm going to attempt to pronounce it, but it starts with a J, and there's a couple of Z's, it seems like, and some C's in there. So it's a really interesting name. Anyway, he talks about art history the way I wish my art history professors had talked about it in college. He makes it really interesting. I was always really bored with art history, but if you have the opportunity and are cruising around YouTube looking for something interesting, all of his shows are, he's a pretty funny guy, and he makes art history much more exciting than it was in college, which is really, I think, how art history should be, because you know, artists are kind of interesting folk. We don't always think the same way as other people, I guess.
Enough. Oh, not you, Michael, sorry.
Anyway, he's a funny guy, and I've been kind of stuck, not stuck, but I've been watching his show. It's been pretty fun.
I watched documentary on Netflix recently that a friend recommended, and she got herself off of Facebook after watching it, but it was very interesting. It was about, it's called A Social Dilemma.
Oh, yeah.
And the guys that are in it, that are writing in it, are all former CEOs or whatever of the different internet and that kind of stuff, companies and whatnot, and saying how the algorithms have basically taken over. And
Oh, yeah.
it really, I guess it really scared her because she isn't even on Facebook anymore. But I was like, no, I'm not going to get sucked into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's ran by the Illuminati.
There you go.
Were there tables with these umbrellas? Am I assuming?
There are tables that you can't see them in either the photo or well, you can almost kind of make out over here.
Where the chair is, yeah.
Yeah, there's a chair. It's a little hard to see, but there's a table right here. In fact, I think this was, and you can see part of the chair and part of the table right there. So, oh, and then there's the table kind of right there in this one too.
Right.
So they were so hard to see in this photo that I didn't
stick them in there, huh?
No. And in fact, the other photo that I had, I thought I took several of this, but I really only took what am I looking for? I only took 2, and I didn't like. Let's see. I didn't like the other one, which I'll pop up real quick. It's this one, so you can see all the tables. In fact,
yeah.
There was a lady sitting there. I think when I walked around to take the other shot, she had gotten up to go to the bathroom or something. But I just didn't like this one.
No, I agree.
So that's why I didn't go with it. Maybe someday I'll go back down there and remember to take pictures. But I really liked how this, this kind of dancing umbrella looking thing going across here kind of spoke to me. So now I know why I painted this particular one and not the other one. Where I thought I had taken several, I took 2.
Yeah. Funny how you see that.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, and that's why I didn't. But yeah, there are tables and chairs. You could sit outside, and it's a nice place to get. They have pretty decent coffee in there, and other, they've got teas and other assorted beverages. I don't know. They don't really have a lot of baked goods. I only vaguely remember the bagel. Maybe I just remember that was I had to work there Sunday from like noon to 6 or something at the Basket Drug Shop next door. And so I would, I'd grab a coffee and after searching long and hard for a parking space, because Old Town is not the easiest place to find free parking. And when you're a college student and working at the Old Town Basket and Rug Shop, you're not making a lot of money. was a fun place to work, though. The family was really nice. They were a friend of mine's aunt and uncle. They invite me over for any kind of backyard barbecue thing that they would have. Kind of fun. Oh, something else that I kind of there is a fence back here, but it's a little. I didn't like how that fence was. I mean, it's just a wooden fence between the two buildings. So So I turned it into a little gate, even in my other painting. I thought that was more interesting than just the wooden fence.
Now, that's a building though that's back and beyond that, right?
Yeah,
In
right
your-
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
see it. I mean, I exaggerated. In my original painting, I moved the roof way down here.
Right.
So it's below this roof line, just because I didn't. But I thought, oh well, I'll move it up and see what happens. So I still moved it down to right about here, just because, mainly because I moved this up so much.
Mm.
Oops. But you know, it's just it was trying to figure out a really good way of incorporating some of those elements and making them a little bit more interesting. I mean, I kind of needed them back there. I needed something back there, but I didn't want just. So I kind of added. Used to know the history of this building. We were supposed to learn work in Old Town Albuquerque. They kind of made you learn a bunch of stuff about all the buildings downtown, or down in there. But
There's a lot of history in those buildings.
oh yeah, but I have since forgotten kind of who the heroes were. I don't remember who they were. But their house was turned into a little shop, several little shops. Each room was kind of a separate little shop.
It's like Santa Fe. That's just so much history there.
Uh-huh. And it always made me laugh because they ask you to participate in they had this Easter tradition of they have these giant wooden saints that they do a little parade. I think it
Oh yeah.
had to have been Easter because it was warm. And so they made me wear I'm not Catholic, but they made me wear like a friar's
Frock.
kind of brown thing. And I was the only one, everybody else was wearing tennis shoes, and I was the only one wearing sandals because I wanted to really play the part. So they were like, hey, you actually went with the sandals. I was like, well, I wanted to kind of look a little more like maybe.
That's cool.
But I'll tell you what, those wooden statues are so heavy. Two of them are on little, what are they called? Little,
Pedestals.
well, one's on a big pedestal with wheels, and one guy pulls it, or two guys pull it because it's like, I don't know, 12 feet tall and really big. But then the rest are on stretchers. They're on like, not really stretchers, but they're on, they're two poles that you slide into the spaces. You lift them up.
Yeah.
And so they do this whole parade kind of thing around the plaza. It was always kind of fun, but it was funny that always made me laugh because I was the only one who ever showed up with sandals on.
Did they give you a higher score for doing that?
I don't know. I kept hoping for a raise for authenticity, but
my family were some of the founding families in Santa Fe and Albuquerque.
oh, okay.
So we're it's interesting to know what their tradition is. Not that I remember any of it. But
Well, those wooden statues are actually kept in the lobby of the hotel that's right down the road there. So you walk down to the thing and you pull them out of the lobby, and it takes, because the one's so tall, you have to turn it on its side, slide through the doors. It was really funny. A lot of behind the scenes work to get that thing for, I think the parade lasted, it was mostly just people walking, and you just went around the square there. I think it lasted all of 20 minutes.
That sounds like our two younger kids went to high school in a small town of Nederland, Colorado, which was west in the mountains from Boulder. And they'd have their homecoming parade in this little town, and they'd have to go around like 3 times to make it, look like it was a big parade.
Oh, yeah.
That's like a parade downtown Aztec.
Yeah, it was like my homecoming parade. I mean, it was pretty short too, even though, the preparation part took longer than the actual parade for sure. Even just on the day of. Well, has everybody gotten this sketched in, or still need a little more time, or?
Some of us get slower than the rest of you.
It's okay. We can kind of keep waiting for a little bit. No worries.
Or you guys can move on. I'll catch up.
Is everybody else ready, or?
I am.
Okay,
I'm ready.
Okay, I'm gonna get my paint wet here, and then we'll start.
I'm one of those people who has to use the ruler and all this stuff, because I can't draw a straight line.
That's why it's called sketching.
Not particularly great at drawing straight lines.
I know, that's hard for you.
My straight line is a series of little tiny curved lines most of the time.
I'm one of those people that when I walk by and see a crooked picture, I have to straighten it.
Yeah. My mom was like that. It was really funny. We used to tease her. And one time a friend of mine and my brother's was over at our house, and we were getting ready to go somewhere, but we were watching my sister, who was really little at the time, and we were waiting for my mom to get home from wherever she was, and then we were going to go to do whatever. Well, I don't even remember what we were doing or where she was, because the joke that we played on her is the only thing any of us ever remember. But we were telling Matt that my mom was a picture straightener, and that it didn't have to be very noticeably crooked. And she would notice it with straightening. He was like, "Oh no." So we went in there and we just minutely shifted every single painting in the living room, so it was just a hair off. And they weren't, they were all, we got them to where they were a hair off, and they were all parallel to each other. So they all had the same angle. So, if you weren't really paying attention, they looked straight. And Mom got home and she didn't even get in the door, because we were like, "Well, we'll see you." And we stepped out of the door past her, and I don't even think she had all of her body in the front door, and she yells, "Wait a minute, what's going on here? Back in here and straighten all these up." And wow, you guys weren't kidding.
My house has been under construction, and they put in some shower doors in my bathroom, and I walked in. I was gone while they did that, and I walked in and immediately saw from the back bedroom door, I could tell that door was not even with the other opposite door. And there were some other issues too. As it turns out, they had realized that there was a problem and they were replacing them.
Oh.
But it was like, oh my goodness.
All righty, so I'm gonna screen share and go to that's it. Place the screen. There we go. Takes me a second to remember what button to push. So there's my sketch. We'll see how much it changes over the time. I don't know why I keep getting this little kind of S shape, and I really like it. I don't think it's not even really, well, it's kind of in the photo. There's like a little kink, but I kind of smoothed it out, and for some reason I really like that little S shape, that umbrella.
Michael,
Yeah.
what have you got sketched up in the top left-hand corner?
Up here,
Yes.
that's just that overhanging tree that kind of coming in there. So it just kind of comes down like this, and there's that building back there. That's
Okay.
all. It'll be real simple. The tree, I'm still, even when I look at the painting that I did, several years ago, the original painting that I did of this, I'm torn on whether or not to include that tree, but I felt like it needed something up there other than just that building, but I don't know. Currently, that's what I have sketched up there. I'm still torn on that tree, whether or not it's up there. But if I go back to the screenshot, you can see there's the trees sort of sticking up out of here, and then kind of sketched it in there too. So that's what that is.
Okay, yeah, I see that now. Okay, thanks.
You're welcome. I think I'm not going to use this light. It gets really hot. It's already hot enough. I think it's not as bright as I would like, but I think it's working. I'm gonna have to invest in. If we keep having to do it this way, we may have to do this through next semester. I don't know. The college is kind of thinking about sticking with it for a while. So we'll see. But I may have to buy a bunch of studio lights or something. Make it so we can see it better. I don't know. I mean, you can see it all right.
It looks good to me.
Oh, good. Okay. And it may just be my laptop is a little needs to be brightened up or something. That could be. I'd probably have it on like power saving or something. But and now I can't even find the. So I'm not gonna worry about it. It actually looks pretty decent when I clean up and look at the screen of my phone. All right. So if I remember correctly, and I probably don't, there's a bunch of ways to start this painting. I think I'm going to start with the umbrellas, because that's really what we're here to paint, are these three umbrellas. And I'm going to start off with just doing the kind of the blue lines. And, I made those, or the stripes, the blue stripes, with surprise. I used peacock blue and opera when I did them before, and I like that combination.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah. So I'm gonna quickly kind of clean. My palette is pretty neat. I'm gonna clean some spots out so I get a little bit better. I had a lot of blue that ran into where I was the opera, so I want to get a little bit cleaner. I'm just cleaning off this corner real quick. Palette. And I'm gonna get a little bit of I'm gonna get a little bit of here. I'll just. I'm gonna get a little bit of opera here. I won't need a whole lot, but get a little bit of puddle. And odds are I'll probably end up going back in and getting some directly from my well. And then I'm going to get a little bit of this peacock blue. Really make sure I've got a lot of water in there. I don't want to get too dark too quick. Even though these are darker stripes, I could have used like Andrew's turquoise or something if I had wanted to, because those are really more kind of, in the photo they're a little more turquoisey, but I just like the peacock blue better. So I'm going to start over here and work my way this way, but you could start over here and work your way back this way. And in my sketch, start off with this stripe and this stripe as being.
Hi, Michael?
Yeah.
Could you put what you're working on the screen? Because I'm looking at the painting. Or maybe it's me.
You're looking at the painting?
Yeah, I'm not looking at what you're working on. Is that everybody or is that just me?
Must be
I'm
just
seeing the drawing.
I'm seeing what he's working on.
me
Okay,
too.
let me adjust here.
Do you see my brush?
Yeah. Okay, I'm good. I'm good now. Sorry about that.
That was weird. So I'm going to start off over here, and just because I'm right-handed, but if you were left-handed, you could start over here. Just pay attention to which stripes are what, and it doesn't really matter. I think this one, and that one. I think I've got it right. I think I wanted a little bit of. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to do this one and this one blue, and then this one, this one, this one, and this far one blue, and then I'm going to do this one, and that one. And it just has to do with how I want, I want this to really pop forward. So by making that one white, that'll help this whole umbrella pop forward. So that's the way I thought this through. So if I put a little tiny little X everywhere, where I'm gonna make one of these blue, it'll help me remember. In case I forget, I probably won't forget, but sometimes it has happened. So I'm going to start off. I've got a lot of water in my brush, and I'm just going to use this is a fairly small painting, but even on that bigger one, which is a half sheet, I think I used a round brush for this. So I'm going to use my number 8 round with a little bit of peacock blue on it right now, and I'm going to come in and sort of start that pretty thin layer of peacock blue. Just bring that in. And then I'm going to clean my brush a little bit and drop in a little opera as well, just in there. And maybe go back to the peacock blue. And that just gives a little bit of, and you can see I kind of got a little bit of opera over into white, but that's okay. That's part of anything. And so I'm going to, I'm really only going to paint the top portion of the umbrella. And I'm only going to paint this first kind of, this first glaze of I'm going to add a little more opera down here. If you don't have peacock blue, you could use like cerulean blue or cobalt blue. Those would be pretty nice, pretty blues. Or even a thin down royal blue would be nice. Just really, really thin. Or some other kind of sky blue. If you have, let's see. I'm gonna got some excess lines here. So I've got that first. That's my first bit of color, and I'm gonna kind of work my way across, same way, pulling that mostly water through. Maybe I'll through that stripe. I'll add a little opera in there. Pickles. And come back down. You can see it's really light. It's really, and by light I mean watery. It's very thin wash. We can go back in and add more later. Right. And I'm not gonna worry too much if it runs into each other. So I'm gonna have this one, later we'll add a little bit of a glaze to push this one back more. Grab a little bit of water. I've got a lot of paint. And I'm gonna pull this in. I'll grab some opera, throw that in there. Some water. And if the two run together, that's okay. We'll separate those out. The only place I want to kind of be a little careful is around the edges between the white stripes and the blue stripes.
Yeah.
I am going to be adding color to those white stripes because we don't want, just plain white is a little boring. So we want a little bit of color on there. Plus, in real life, I remember, you can see little bounces of color reflecting off of onto that white. Hard to see in the photo. And back in here, I'm just going to kind of do almost just a line of blue where it's real thin, and then as it thickens up back here. Like so. And then we'll just continue on into this umbrella. Smudging issue going on here. Hand's got a bit of graphite on the side of it. I started again up just to make sure everything was wet. So I just added a little bit of water to my brush. Sort of displace some of that peacock blue, and then I'll start off with your peacock blue down in here and kind of pull it up into. One of the things I liked about this is just really how watery these stripes look. So I kind of remember not coming back and doing a whole lot to them after I finished. I just really enjoyed how they look. They're white on, maybe I'll leave them white. There's these little bumps on top of the umbrellas. I think I'm going to leave them white. They're white in the photo. I kind of like that. Just kind of going between Opera and Peacock Blue. I put a fair amount of paint down. That's a kind of a bigger stripe right there because we're seeing the majority of it not from the side, and it's the closest one to us. So I put a fair amount of paint and water down. Just pull that up in and sort of let it run together. And it kind of forms a light violet color. Where it's still kind of damp, like this dried, I think, so I'm not going to be able to get much. Just a little speck of white. Plop that in, and then it's too much. And then this final. Let's see. I'm going to clean up. I have a whole. Whoops. What happens when you stick your brush with ink in your mouth? I have a whole slew of extra lines that I'm going to kind of clean up with my kneaded eraser just a little bit so they're not. And I'm going to lighten a couple of these lines just so they're not too overbearing. I don't think that they'll really cause any problems, but occasionally I'll go in and lighten some of those and get rid of some. So just basically switching back and forth between the Peacock Blue and the Opera. Could drop a little, I don't know. I'm not going to do it. I was thinking I could drop a little Andrews turquoise in there. Yeah, kind of curious. Give it a bit more.
No.
Turquoise. A couple spots on that. Maybe just this one umbrella. Just for fun. Just to kind of push it slightly teal. Turquoisey. Drop in a little bit of that. Yeah. That's kind of fun. Straighten up this line. That's the one thing when you're painting. I called it a line. I really should have called it an edge. But when you're painting an edge right next to something that's going to be much lighter, you want to get it as precise, well, not necessarily, but I like to get it as clean and precise as possible. Yeah, but I like how that's working. So now that these have kind of dried a little bit, I'm going to come in and add these. I do want a wee bit of a line to sort of appear there, which is why I'm kind of doing them separately. Normally, I probably would have just painted the whole thing and then come back in, but I kind of want to see if I can't accentuate that edge, if you will. So I'm going to come in with some Peacock Blue, and I'm actually going to do it a little bit darker because it's the edge and not the top. So I'm going to add, I'm going to have a little bit more pigment than normal. But this should help kind of create an edge, even though it's a lot of the same color. Maybe I'll bring in some of that Andrews turquoise over here too, just to accentuate that plain, change in plane. And then I'm going to come down with a little there. Square up that edge over there a little bit. I don't want it super round. I mean, I kind of drew that one more round than it is. They're really kind of rectangular shape with curved, soft corners. But it doesn't, again, it doesn't matter. I just like that. So again, I'm just going to kind of work my way around. I do really like how that Andrews turquoise is kind of looking a little bit more turquoise. Soften that up. And peacock blue, and then maybe some opera.
Did you forget the bottom of the second stripe on the first umbrella, or
I did.
are we
I'm
saving it?
that out right there.
Yeah,
I did. I missed it.
that's
So-
fine. I wanted to make sure I wasn't.
Nope. You're correct. I missed that one. I wasn't paying attention to that little bit right here. And I'm just kind of, rotating between the opera and the peacock blue, and every now and then throwing in a little Andrews turquoise. Or I felt like I had too much, I'm gonna pick that up and actually add in a little more turquoise. Yeah, good catch, Jesse. I'm glad you said something, because I would have. I think I would have eventually noticed it, but who knows when.
When you were ready to frame it.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. I'm going to start this one off, I think, with the Andrews turquoise over in this corner, just because it's a little more bright right in there. Where the sun's going to be hitting it. And then I'll switch into the peacock blue. And again, some of this opera down in here. And then just kind of move that around a bit. Maybe add a little bit more water to see if I can get those three colors to kind of run together a little bit better. Right here, I had a little bit of Andrews turquoise and it dried real quick on me. So I've got that ghost of a little, I don't know if you can see it, but I've got a ghost of a little bit of a triangle shape right there. You may see it once it dries, but I'm not going to let that bother. Better. Fix this thing. I don't know what I was doing. Had a weird thing that when I was trying to lift that, soften that line, I got a lot of moisture over there, so color kind of ran into where I wanted that white to be, so I had to sort of adjust that just a skosh. Right here. And then back over here. And so I'm just switching back and forth between the peacock blue, the Andrews turquoise, and the opera. And I kind of want to soften some of these edges, so I'm going to pull them up into here with some water. Just to soften a little bit of that. I'll do the same over here. I don't think this is quite dry yet, so I have my, that's kind of, going to affect that as well. But
Yes.
all right. That works. That was just clean water. I put a little bit there and it started to run way up into here, and I thought I was going to get a blossom that I wasn't going to care for. So I just added water to this whole section of, and it's just clean water, this whole section. I like this soft bit there, so I want to keep that, but where I kind of have that lost edge a little bit, but yeah, I'm gonna dry this real quick. Cool. So now I'm going to work on the white area, and I do kind of want this fairly clean. So I'm going to, I mean, if there's a little bit of graphite in there, it's not going to hurt anything. You want it a little bit cleaner than I've got it, because although sometimes it's kind of nice, unless you're using yellow, the pencil lines can't erase from underneath the paint, but for some reason yellow locks it down. I just wanted to lighten up a couple of those little spots. That's also the nice thing about a kneaded eraser. You can just kind of blot the paper or roll it over the paper, and it'll clean up some of that excess without smearing anything. Okay, so let's do this white. The white is also going to be a bit of either Andrews turquoise or peacock blue, with maybe a hint of the opera, but it's going to be as light, as thin as this wash was. This is going to be even more so. So it's almost no paint, and just a hint of a lot of water and just a hint of the color. So barely any paint. And if you feel like you get too much, just completely clean your brush out and
Turn what down?
and just use water. So again, I'm going to kind of start over here. I'm just going to. You can see there's very little paint. And then I went in and cleaned my brush out, so now I'm just moving what I've got with clean water around just to give that little bit of volume. I'm going to kind of work my way around. Barely any color. Mostly. And sometimes you can even come over here and just pick up a little bit of what you've got, just to give it that hint of color. And I'm gonna add a little bit of opera, plop some down, and then thin it out a lot with water. So I picked up barely any opera. Let's see if I can kind of zoom in. You can see I picked up barely any opera, and then I came in with just water and moved it around. Same with over here. This effect, I think I might add just a hint of opera up here as well. But I added just a hint of that peacock blue, and then completely cleaned my brush out. Soften that right there of opera. Clean that up. But so you can see it's white, but it's not. It feels like white. People think it's white, but it's really got a little bit of color. I think up here I'm going to use just a bit of this Andrews turquoise, just up there, just a little bit up into that area. Once we get this fairly dark there, that hardly will be noticeable, but it'll feel a little more vibrant, a little more alive by having, instead of just being the white of the paper. So let's see. Kind of come in with a little bit here. That's just peacock blue. I'm going to go ahead and just pull it down over that lip here. And you can see I'm just kind of moving it up, leaving that rest of that, I think I'll leave white, just because that's, higher up. This would be a little bit darker because of the curve of the umbrella. And then same with over here. So we have a little color, a little opera up there. Well, skosh there. It's not too bad. Darker than I want. Yeah. So you can see just by adding that little bit of stuff to there, that pushed this quite a bit forward. We are going to come back in and add a little bit more of a shadow to this as well. But now, because this is kind of, the sunlight's coming from over here, I want to kind of highlight that. So I'm going to put a little bit of the blue up here. Some of that opera, or not opera, I'm sorry, some of that peacock blue, maybe a little Andrews turquoise. Just a hint of it up into here and pull that down. Oh, and then I'll probably want some there too, but kind of pull it down into that white. Let's see, I didn't put any. I'm going to put a little opera in there. And just a hint of peacock blue. That's too much, so now I can go back in, clean my brush out, actually dab it so that it actually picks up some of that versus laying it down. So I put a little color down and then I picked it back up with my brush. Sometimes that's the only way to get a little tiny hint of a color. I do feel like I maybe want a little bit more hint of color in this, so I'm going to add just a hint of that opera. And I'll zoom in on that so maybe you can see that a little bit better. It's just a hint of pink right in there. Kind of see it, and there's just barely any in there. Oops, sorry. That's what I was doing with my hand. Relax. Okay, so let's come in over here. I think because the shadow, the shadow is going to be kind of moving this way. I want this to be a little bit darker to start off with. So I'm just going to pull a little bit of this peacock blue up in there, and then maybe just a hint of opera as well. Maybe a little too much. I'm gonna completely blot my brush off over here and come back and pick some of that back up. You can see even with all that color on there, it still looks like white, which is kind of cool. This one. There's turquoise down in here. That's a bit much, so I don't want to get quite that dark yet. Little opera. I put some color down. Now I'm just adding water on top of it to really water it down. And then if I blot my brush off over here, I can come back in and pick some of it up. So it's just the hint, a whisper of that color. How's everybody doing?
Hang it in
Great.
there.
Okay, good. Good deal. I just realized I think I was going to make that one blue instead of these two. That's all right though. It's still going to pop that out with a bit of shadow. I mean, I know that I put an X here, but I think originally I was planning on making that one. That's okay. Alrighty. So these down, you know, these little flaps on the front are kind of, or on the umbrellas are kind of, they're going to be very similar. I'm just going to add a little bit of a wash of color. I do want to accentuate some of these. There's kind of a crease in the umbrella. And it's actually on the inside, but I kind of like how it looked. So I'm going to add just a hint of darker color right there. And then just kind of pull this down. And then maybe even a little bit of more color at the bottom. Because it, you know, there's some undulation of it's a plastic fabric, but, you know, or vinyl or whatever. So I'm just going to kind of make some little shapes. I don't know if you can see that. Zoom in, kind of, you know, you can see I left some white. If I felt like maybe there was a little bit too much right here, I could come in and blot some of that up with my brush. Still going to be peacock blue, but quite a bit lighter. And maybe that's just a bit too dark, so I can pick some of that up. I don't mind that a bit of a line is forming on this. I feel like it kind of helps. And once we paint these darker bits back in here, you know, that are in shadow, they're the flaps on the other side of the umbrella, sort of hanging down. It'll help with that. Which actually on this umbrella there aren't that many, but I added some anyway. Okay. So let's keep going. Ooh, that's a big piece of those. A little of that. I'm going to add a little bit of opera over here. Only here. Just kind of dropping in a little color and a little bit more color than what I've been doing up here because it's you know a different shape. I mean, it's a different plane that's going to be a bit more in shadow, which we will add more to this later when we kind of put that little bit of a shadow in there. But for now, I want it just a hint darker. This one's going to come in. So much on there, but not too much, just a hint of too much. So I picked a little bit back up, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of opera there, just for some color variation. I don't know if you can see that. It still looks white, but it looks quite a bit darker than that, and definitely darker than that. So while that's drying, I'm gonna actually come over here and work on these two because I kind of want a bit of a line there, and I don't want to lose that. So I'm going to come over and work on these for now. And I'm kind of starting with the darker bit, you know, since the sun's coming in on this edge. So I'll put a little color down and then wash my brush out and move it around with just water. Pick up a little more color down here. Clean my. I'm basically going back and forth between using color in my brush and then using just water. And you can see if I show you my palette, you can see that whoops, you know, there's very little color actually on my palette. It's mostly water. So even if I come over here and grab a little bit more of that, there's a lot of water in that. So add a little hint of that opera. And that little bit of in the sun more. All right, so let's do this last little one. That's still wet. I'll probably have to use the hairdryer here in a second. Obviously, I've added too much paint, but I'll just come in with a clean brush, just water in it. Put that down. Pick some of that back up. Get a little opera. And in here, maybe. Just a hint of Andrew's turquoise right here. Now clean my brush out and just use water to again to sort of soften that and let it flow a little bit more. Yeah. I need to dry this little bit right here real quick, so I'm going to do that. I can even come in and pick some of that up. That's good enough. All right. So again, I want this kind of edge to be fairly bright white. I have this little line of graphite right there. I'm trying to pick that up. Because I want that to stay pretty bright right there. And then I'm gonna, since I'm using a little bit of Andrew's turquoise right here, I'm gonna come in with just a little bit of Andrew's turquoise over here. Switch into peacock blue. And if that seems like too much, that's true. But that's all right. I'm gonna just add water and pick that up, and then leave a little opera down in here. And I don't know if you can see the kind of shape on the hard to tell. Kind of. But you can see I've, you know, I've got a little bit of color there, but I'm leaving a lot of that edge white. Clean my brush out, a little bit of water, and then dab my brush off so I can pick some up. And that's really all that's going to need. I do feel like maybe this one's a little bit too light now. I'm going to come in with just a hint of that Andrew's turquoise and darken this up just a skosh. too far. Part of that will get darkened up. I'm going to have kind of a shadow that comes into a point, and then there's going to be a bit of more shadow that kind of comes down that way too. But I think that's looking all right. Not too shabby. Yeah. A few little wrinkles in the fabric. Cool. All right. I'm going to dry this real quick. Cool. Yeah. I think that's looking all right. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good.
All right.
I'm not ready to throw it away yet.
Well, that's good.
I know.
So I'm gonna quickly kind of lightly sketch this kind of shape that I want for the shadow. Just so I can this, but I want you guys to kind of see where this is going to go. It's going to kind of come across like that, and then there's going to be a bit of a thing maybe like that. I don't know exactly how realistic like that is. Obviously, in the photo, it doesn't have that, but I feel like it adds a bit of a curve and helps that really show that volume. And I'm going to do the same over here. So I'm going to have a bit of a shadow come across like so, and then it would do the same over there. And maybe there's a bit of this shadow kind of coming in. Yeah. And again, I mean, it's not something, maybe actually this will come in. It's not necessarily, well, it's definitely not in the source photo, and it may not even do this in real life, but I liked how it ended up showing that curve of the, that volume of the umbrella.
Where did you put it on the left one? I can't see it.
Oh, here, I'll zoom in. You can kind of see it comes
Oh, okay. I see.
kind of like that.
Gotcha.
It was a little hard to see when it was way up here. So that's really, it's just there ever so lightly. In fact, a bit dark. Not that it's going to matter because it's going to all be a bit darker. Okay, so let's see here. And really, I could use, I want to keep these fairly bright. I could use, I'm trying to remember what I used before. I may have used some royal blue. Uh, and, but I think, actually, I do think I used some royal blue. I used royal blue and then a little bit of magenta at the time. But that's a little, I can't find the permanent magenta from Holbein paints. So I have, where it's labeled permanent magenta, I have quinacridone magenta, which is a little bit lighter. So I like to use the quinacridone violet, which is very close to what permanent magenta was like. I watched, that same guy that I was telling you, that documentary, or the Perspectives documentary series that I was watching. He talks about, he did a whole series on, and now I can't think of his first name, but there were two artists, father and son, named Holbein, and they were Austrian, I want to say. Anyway, very interesting, interesting guys. The father did a lot more. Let me see if I've watched so many of those. The father did a lot of religious stuff because at the time it was what, the 1300s or something. The son ended up, and I think this is correct. Just make sure I remember this. I think he's responsible for the way we think of Henry VIII. You know, the big, fat, heavy set king.
Yeah.
Big, wide guy that, married 6 times and killed several, had his wife throughout the Catholic Church and started the Church of England and all that stuff. I think
Yeah.
Holbein is the reason we have that image of Henry VIII, because he actually wasn't quite that big, or quite that impressive, I should say.
He's a little short guy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was short and he was, towards the end of his life, he was heavier set, but he was a little more, he was less broad than he painted it. And anyway, it was just kind of an interesting documentary, and that's where Holbein Paints gets their name from.
Huh.
So anyway, just an interesting little thing that I watched. Anyway, but I got off on a tangent there. Sorry. So
You do that a lot.
yeah.
It's part of your charm.
I think what I'm going to do is clean a little bit more of this dark area on my palette off, where I have green and blue and stuff mixed together, just so it's a little cleaner. And I'm going to use, again, I'm going to use some royal blue, but if you have something like Antwerp blue or Prussian blue or even indigo, very, very, very little pigment, or ultramarine blue might, well, I don't know. If I were using, I might use indigo or even peacock blue or something instead of, I'd probably use cobalt or something like that, mixed with just a hint of something else. But I'm going to use some royal blue. And again, I'm going to show you, I'll show you, I can get this unstuck. You can see, royal blue is fairly dark, but this is really watery. I'm going to get more water. I want it, when I brush through that, you can see that's, going to be what it's going to look like on the paper. So I want a little of that and a little of this quinacridone violet. Let's see, I'll just put that over here. There's a fair amount, there's a fair amount on my palette, but again, if I add a whole lot of water, you can kind of see that's going to be what I end up with. Just a, you know, mostly water. Very little pigment. And I'm gonna start with, I'm gonna start over here just because I feel like it. I'm gonna start with the royal blue and just pull that across. And you can see it's, again, very little, very little pigment, mostly water. If I feel like I have too much water, I can blot my brush, but pulling that across right in here. I think I'm going to switch to some of the, because I have a lot of opera in here, I'm going to switch to this quinacridone violet right in here, just because. And then I even have some, I want some down on here. I'm going to pull that in, make sure that I've got it even on there. And I also want it on, darken this little bit, this flap. So I'm going to pull that down into there. If I feel like it, I can later, I can come in and add a bit more of a line or something. Then I'll switch back to just the royal blue and kind of pull that in and then pull it down into this area. So I've now darkened that area, added a little bit of a, you know, a shadow to that, but it also adds some volume. Honestly, I don't think the shadow would be that sharp, but I like that that bit of curve in there.
Your world, it's that way.
That's right. That's right. So if you wanted yours a little softer, you could definitely come in and lift, come in and lift that back up or something, and soften that edge, or add water up here and soften it. I'm going to leave it. I like the way it looks. Later, I'll come in and I might accentuate some of this edge where we have a change of plane. But right now, I'm going to leave it like that. So I've used up most of my paint on my palette because I had so little. I'm going to mix up a little bit more. And I'm going to come over and do this one here. So I'm going to start up here. And again, you can see it's mostly water. Just a hint of that royal blue. Maybe switch over to some of this quinacridone violet. Pull that down. Down over here. The royal blue. That back a bit. Bless you. I don't know who sneezed, but. And then pull that in. Something kind of like that. So that way. That may be even a little dark, but it won't matter because this is kind of the edge anyway. So it'll get hit with a little blue around the edge anyway. Yeah, that's looking all right. I think it's hit too much pencil line there, but I can go back in and try to erase some of that later once it's dry. And so now I'm going to do this middle one. And again, going to start off with a little royal blue back up in here. And this will really help push that umbrella back. I've got a fair amount of paint there, so I'm going to just clean my brush out and move it with a wet brush. So it's just water now that I'm moving that paint around. Maybe we'll go in and add some of this quinacridone violet in here to a little different. But you can see how it's really pushing this, starting to push this umbrella forward. Which is nice. Quinacridone violet, back to the royal blue. And over here, I want this to be a little bit darker than that other one. This is still kind of wet, so I'm being a little bit careful on how close I got to that, but not that careful. I don't mind if that kind of bleeds into it a little bit. It's not a big deal. Quinacridone violet. So when you're done, it should look something like that. Not exactly, but I wanted this one just a bit darker because than these two, because it's a little further back. If you don't mind, I'm going to run to the bathroom really quick. Give you guys an opportunity. I don't think you're that far behind me, but I'm going to run. I've been drinking a lot of water today. Well, it's catching. So how's the voice? All right. I think I'll hit this with a dryer just in case. Yeah. So I'm going to go ahead and add these darker bits that are the flaps on the other side. You know, obviously this is a round umbrella, so there are flaps coming down on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and add those, and that'll kind of help distinguish some of this as well. So for that, I'm going to use royal blue and quinacridone violet again for the most part. But let's see, is that all dry? Yeah. But a fair amount more than before. I could even use. I might even throw in a little Hooker's green mixed with some royal blue to get a little blue green back up in there. In fact, I'm going to mix some of that up. I'll show you what I'm doing here. Although I'm using the wrong brush, I don't need that. Well, actually, I'm going to use that small brush. So I've got a little Hooker's green here, mixed with some of that royal blue. Then I've obviously got just regular royal blue. Still fairly watery. I mean, there's a lot of water in it. And then some of that quinacridone violet. I think I'm going to work from left to right again. You don't necessarily have to. You could work from right to left, however you want to do that. And I'm going to start off with a little royal blue down in here. This is such a small little spot that I'm not going to even switch colors. I just have a little royal blue. Even a bit more down into there. And then I'm going to accentuate that divide right there by bringing that. I don't know if you can see that. I'm going to bring that royal blue real thin, like a real thin little bit of a line right up into there. And this is where anytime I screw something up, I don't like the shape of something, this is where you can go in and kind of sculpt how that foreground shape looks. I've got a little guy, maybe I'll move into a little quinacridone violet that I didn't even clean my brush out. I just grabbed some quinacridone violet and mixed on my brush into that kind of darker purple. Just royal blue here, maybe a little of that. I'm not going to clean my brush again, just going to pick up some of that green. Green mix. Maybe back to the royal blue. Picked up another cat here. Sorry about that. That darn studio cat likes to sit on my palette. I do not know why. Maybe just a hint of that. Maybe there's just a bit more of a split between the two right there. You just kind of bring that up. And I'm going to just, because I've got green there, I'm going to continue that green on. And then I think I'll go into the quinacridone violet. This dries, if it doesn't feel dark enough, you can see, I mean, if I zoom in on that royal blue is drying a little bit light, but if I don't feel it's dark enough, we can go back and add more later, but I don't want to get too dark too quick. Because I also know that I have a fairly dark back here. And I don't mind it getting lost in that, but I don't want it all lost. So let's see here. I think I'll start off with royal blue again. Pull that up into here. And really kind of pull that down like so. And here, this is where I've got my pole. So I have to kind of pay attention to what I'm doing. I picked up a little green. I have to stop for that pole there's going to be a shadow on that pole, but it's going to be a little bit different than because the pole is white. Well, it's not going to be that different, but it's going to be a little bit different. So I want to stop for it and allow for however I end up making that look. There's that first. I'll go back to the royal blue. You know, you could even use a little indigo in here if you wanted. I mean, come back up here and create that little bit more of a divide. Pull that over. Maybe pick up a little of that quinacridone violet. Throw that in there. I think I only have room for like 2 of these. So this is going to come back in there like that. Got a weird stop, so I'm going to add just a hint of green back here as well, just so it kind of displaces some of that and doesn't feel like it just stops there suddenly. There is, those are kind of the 2 flaps on that back umbrella that we see. And then I'm going to start on this. There's a little flap right here. It's a little hard to see, but there's a flap right here, on this front umbrella. So I'm going to start on those. And I think I'm going to start with some of this dark green, Hooker's Green Royal Blue mix. And this one, you know, the umbrella is at a bit of a tilt away from us, so they're a little bit longer maybe. I'll grab a little indigo for this one. And ever so slightly pull that kind of up in there. Maybe there's a bit of dark area that's kind of peeking through. You can see I didn't draw the entire line. Put another little dot right there. So I have kind of a start and stop kind of line. A little hard to see. Get it to focus. But it's enough of one that it gives me that whole kind of, you know, it gives me the line that I want there without really doing the whole line and outlining everything. Got this coming in here. I'm gonna put this back in the cradle. Quinacridone violet mixed with royal blue. Kind of do this one, I think. Actually, I think I'm gonna change my mind. I think I'm gonna. So I've got it kind of coming up in there with the quinacridone violet, but I think here in a second I'm gonna switch back to that green, that indigo green kind of thing, and see if I can't get that. It was bleeding across, and I like how that did that. I want that to kind of bleed into there. It's kind of a weird shape block. That works. And we'll start off with Start off with that dark purple mix, the quinacridone violet royal blue mix. And then I think I'm going to go into just some royal blue and pull that in before I get to that. That was way too much. Before I get into this this stand, the umbrella stand is. I want to switch to this royal blue. So maybe this is where I'll switch back to some. Kind of like how that's looking. Feels very much like maybe the teal or turquoise, whatever is picking up some of that from the other side of the umbrella.
The life-threatening side effects, including allergic reactions.
And so that was the green, and then I kind of switched back to royal blue, but with a lot of green in it still. I think I'm gonna switch to indigo too. I'm right here. I'm gonna, as I go, I want this last little bit to be a little bit dark. So. Then I'm gonna leave just a hint of little white right there to kind of pick up the thickness of that flap, just for giggles. We'll see how well it works. It may not work. I don't know. I don't even know if you can see that. And see a hint of white.
Setting is coming on.
On over.
Yeah, turn on the light. Let me see if it's. Let me turn on the light for you.
So. You have something that kind of looks a little bit like that when you're done.
Just needs a little more. Stand up time.
Well, that's working all right. Not too bad. Yeah. I'm gonna dry that real quick. I'm recording this, right? Yes. Okay. I feel like I want a little bit more divide between this and this, where some of that dark comes up in there. So I'm just gonna take a little bit of royal blue and just put a hint of a. Excuse me, I got the hiccups. Just a hint of that, just so it divides a little bit better. Yeah, I'm pretty pleased with this. Is everybody else doing all right?
Yeah,
All right. Still don't want to throw it away?
that's correct.
All right. I'm going to stay away from this. I'm still debating on that tree, or if I just want to maybe make that. I mean, I like the tree, but I'm wondering if it's a little bit like somebody standing on the edge of the of the stage right next to the curtain and doing something really weird while that's happening over. So I'm debating on that. I may take that out completely. Not sure it's necessary. Some sort of little smell. That's all right. Oh, that's because it's actually. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do now is kind of a lot of this light area up in here. So I'm going to start off. I think I'm going to use my flat brush for this, even though there's some shadow here and there's a fair amount, little bits of dark shadow. I'm going to go ahead and just paint one big kind of swath of light. Same with down here. Well, actually, I think I'm going to do this section, and then I may come back down here and do some of these bushes before I do. Well, no. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start up. I'm going to do some of this up here, and then I'm going to do the bushes. So I am going to clean some of this green out of my palette where the yellow is. I always hate to, when I start a new painting, I never know exactly what color I'm going to use right away. So I always hate to clean my palette because I always think, well, it may be something I got on there, but thirdly, I need to clean a little bit. Okay. So I'm going to start off with, I don't think I'm going to use any lemon yellow necessarily. Let's see. I'll do that. I'm going to kind of clean this line up just a skosh because I know I'll be able to later. And I'm going to lighten this just by picking it up with my kneaded eraser.
That's a good trick.
Yeah, it's a handy thing.
You never mentioned that before.
I didn't.
That's great.
Oh, geez, I don't know.
No,
I don't know why I didn't. Shoot, sorry. I'm glad I mentioned it this time. I
am too.
My mom showed me that when I was a kid.
Well, let's put it this way. I don't remember you mentioning it. That doesn't mean you didn't.
You're probably correct. If I did, it was probably a long time ago, before you started taking the class. Okay, so I've got that.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't actually, now that I think about it, who knows? I may not have ever mentioned it. So I'm going to start that. I'm going to use my flat brush because it's a pretty big space. I think I'm just going to start off with the permanent yellow deep. So kind of that real light orangey yellow, not the lemon yellow. But if you don't have something like that, you could start with lemon yellow, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just going to start with the permanent yellow deep and cover a lot of ground fairly quickly. So I'm just putting that in. And then I'll switch over to some permanent yellow orange, which when you water it down, like right there, it looks a lot brighter or a lot darker, I should say, than the other. But once I add some water, it's actually very similar. So we'll just put that in. Again, we can, we'll change some of the way these different planes we're going to look later once we go in and add. For this first wash, we're just going to drop in a fair amount of color. Now I'm going to do these window panes. In the photo they're white, but I really like that. Again, I like that turquoise, blue, window paint. Oops, I kind of screwed up right there, but that's all right because that's going to be super dark. Over there. I like that kind of blue door window pane look, so I'm going to do those window panes there. So I'm not going to paint any. I'm going to paint around those. Same with here. As I get close to these umbrellas, I'm just going to come right up to them with the edge of my brush. And then I can pick up a little bit of that. So there, in the space of like, what, 2 minutes, I probably talked about it more than I actually did it. I can go in and kind of pick that up just a skosh. And then if I feel like maybe I want to fix a little bit of this, where this is coming in, I can come in with my round brush and pick some of that back up and move it over. I am gonna pull. While I'm sort of dinking around with it, I'm gonna drop a little opera in there, just for some color variation up in here. It won't really be that noticeable there, so I'm not gonna do it. So I dropped it in. Now I'm gonna add a lot of water just so it'll run, because I don't want those little weird splotchy things that I painted in there. Water. In fact, I should be using my own brush. Yeah. So where I feel like maybe there's a little bit too much, I can go back in. I can squeeze all the water, or a lot of the water, out of my brush, so it's just damp and it's a thirsty brush, and I can come in and pick some of that excess water up, so I don't get a weird bleed back once it starts drying. Same with right here. I've got a puddle right there with a bit of a dip in the paper. I can come in and get some of that. I don't need a lot here because that is going to be in shadow. I just want that, because it's a cast shadow, I want that glow to shine through, as we've done in other things. So again, I probably talked about that whole process longer than it actually took me. And the reason I'm not going to start here is because I want to get some of these bushes sort of laid in, and I want to overlap a little bit so I can come back down with slightly darker colors. Sculpt the top of those. And I do like that lavender. I think it's actually Russian sage that's sticking up in the front, but I don't think I'm gonna, like in the other one, my original, I did do those planter boxes back there, but I don't really have those. I think what I'm gonna do is just do, well, I don't know. I could do some light violets. I think I might try that. It's not going to really look like the Russian sage that's sticking up there. I don't think that's lavender. I'm pretty sure it was Russian sage.
No, it is Russian sage.
Yeah. I could do that, and maybe I think I will, but it won't really look like that. I think I'm going to pick up on those cool colors though, because all of this is going to be fairly warm in here, and this is fairly cool, but still right out there in the. I think I'm going to stick with the kind of cool color down in here, maybe. So I'm not really going to paint Russian sage. I'm gonna paint with a little. I am going to use just a hint of like lemon yellow. I'm going to grab just a wee bit of that. And put some of that in there. But then I'm going to switch real quickly to some peacock blue and some of that that purple mix that I have right here. Fairly quickly as well. So I'm just going to place a little bit of lemon yellow in here in some spots. Let's see, that's on the other side of the. Let's put some there. I accidentally pick up some or turn yellow beet. Okay, too. So I got a little. So just a hint of that lemon yellow. And now I'm going to switch over to the peacock blue. Very watery. I don't want this to get too dark yet. So let's see. This comes in front of that umbrella. And then I'm going to also, without cleaning my brush out, since it's a lot of water, I'm going to go in and grab some of that that violet blue mix that I made. I plopped a little down and it was too much, so I cleaned my brush out and just grabbed a little water. But I'm going to put that down in here. So it picks up on those colors of the Russian sage, but doesn't. It isn't necessarily, because that's not the important thing. I like that color down in there, that cool mixed with almost a warm yellow that you get from that. But let's see, let's come in here before this dries too much. So I like that kind of cool gray that you get from those colors. But and back up in here, again, I need to work umbrella pole. And these are just right now they're going to blend together. We'll come back in and separate the two bits of. Let's come back in with some of that purple. The two bits of bushy things of plant material. So if they start blending together, that is okay. So it's kind of a lavender gray, I guess, really is what that is. And even if I get some up into this other bit or whatever, it's not a big deal. I don't want that little blob of white or water here. So we just really just added. Let's see, a bit of a glare. So we've just added a real light wash, and we'll come back in and really add to this. But for now, we just want this really light wash with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of that violet, a little bit of the peacock blue. Yeah. So it's just a real light wash. And I'm going to dry it. I mean, as I dry, you can see it's really lightened up quite a bit. And that's okay.
Michael,
Yes.
just so you're aware, it's 20 of 9.
Oh, thank you for pointing that out. Do
Welcome.
you guys want me to look at yours, or you want to paint up till 9, or how do you want to do that?
I'd rather paint.
Okay. Why not? What? Anybody else? I mean, there's not a lot to critique yet, really.
I agree. Let's go ahead and paint.
Okay. And if you want me to look at it, we can stick around a little bit longer. How's that? Thanks for the time check there, Jeannie.
Sure.
You get going and having fun and forget what time it is. Okay, so now that this is dry, I'm gonna continue this wash, which this is still damp up there, but because it's divided by the umbrellas, we don't have to worry. Because it's getting a little tighter in here, I am going to switch to that other round brush instead of the flat brush. I'm going to start off with kind of that permanent yellow orange that I kind of ended with over here. So I need to get that puddle going again. And again, as this dries, it looks pretty dark right now, but as it dries, it'll get a little bit closer to that. Also, as I move it around, I think a little more water and a little less paint. I think I'm going to switch over to a little Scarlet Lake. If you don't have Scarlet Lake, you could use, a nice red. Like I could use permanent red as well. That's also a very nice red. But again, this is very little paint, a lot of water, because I want. I don't want it to be too red. I just want it to be, slightly darker, but. On my brush, and we'll pull it up into that orange so it starts to blend a little bit. Drop a little more water to it really together. I'm going to pull it down in here, and then I'm going to start thinking about these shapes that I have here. I will use a little permanent red. I don't mind if this starts to get a little darker down in here. It just helps push it back in space, because these bushes are going to get a little darker later. So, but again, I can also add more paint to. I can add another glaze of this paint on top of this too, if I need to get it darker, because the bushes have gotten darker. Let's see, what am I doing? Red. So there's a little Scarlet Lake, a little permanent red. I think this bush, I like that. I'm going to leave a little bit of white around it. Just in my head, it has a little bit of a highlight there or something. Let's go back to the Scarlet Lake. It's a little orangier red. You can see I put a little bit more of that orange here, just because I like it. Get that kind of run. Again, I'm thinking about the shapes, not only this plane that I'm painting, but the shape of these bushy things in the foreground. So I want to kind of, I need to be thinking about both of those at the same time. That in there. Just getting a bit dark right there, darker than I want it. So. Work my way around that umbrella stand. And what I think I'm going to do, I'm adding a little more Scarlet Lake to that orange right there because I think I'm going to come in with a little more. I like how that orange picked up a little bit of light on, you know, that's on that. What it's not really a windowsill. That's like kind of a weird building. It has a little bit that comes out, but it's so hard to figure out paint that I'm just going to paint it as a flat. Because no one will ever know. But I like that little hint of orange there as well, so I wanted to add that. I also want this red to look like it's not, you know, like it belongs. I need it on both sides. I needed a little bit more of it going this way. Yeah. So there, I just kind of brought that whole, you know, kind of reddy orange. You know, it's permanent yellow orange, and then Scarlet Lake, and a little bit of permanent red in there as well. In fact, I may just drop just a hint more of permanent red. Oops, that may be too much. Maybe not. A little bit more of the permanent red. Let me get that to kind of run. Let me get that way. Over here. Just kind of balance out that bit that's over. Darken this just a skosh. It's kind of dried over here, so I'm going to have to put some color down and then clean my brush out and then just kind of pull it up with a wet, clean brush.
Come on in, buddy.
Kind of like that.
It's cold out there.
All right. But yeah, it should look something like that. Just realize those aren't quite lining up, but that's okay. What I can do is kind of come over here. Looks like I'm putting a lot of dark orange right there. Just kind of cleaning up that line just a bit so it feels like it lines up a little bit better. And then I'm just going to pull it over into here. Over here is going to be in a little bit of shadow, so it won't matter, but I think that kind of got that line lined up with the line that's, you know, maybe just a skosh better.
With the window dividers, are you going to go with the same yellow, orange, whatever?
These, no, I'm going to do those in kind of blues, and I want to do those in blue. It's white on the building, but I really like that kind of Taos window look. So they're going to be blues. This line is
Yeah.
so it'll be more like this, but Andrew's turquoise. ish. Hopefully that makes sense.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna stop here just because I think I'm at a good spot to stop.
Okay. Well,
So
what time is it? It's 8:48.
it's 8:50, but yeah.
Well, all right.
So
I-
I will,
That line.
I'm gonna, since you're not looking at pictures tonight, I'm just gonna close out and see you next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you next week. I had my line off just a
All
bit.
righty.
We'll see you.
Bye.
Bye. That's a little better. So I needed to come in and fix that just a skosh right there because this line wasn't really lining up very well, and neither was this one. I realized it needed to be moved in just a skosh. So I had to kind of fiddle with that. Probably a little bit more than I would have liked, but that's all right. Yeah, I softened that edge a bit, and I may even need to go back in and kind of fix that a little bit more. But yeah. And I'm going to clean up a few of these little edges here. Well, that great line, but that's okay. All right, so I'm going to dry that. This is kind of where, at the point where I can kind of start thinking about how this is working. This angle's weird right there, so I'll probably have to fix that as well. And actually, I think if I break, it'll fix. I'm still seeing a bit of a like it's back in over here, and I think if I just kind of fix that. Um, so I'm just coming in with a little bit of that permanent yellow deep, and I'm going to soften that edge. The nice thing about this is it's going to be in shadow. You can see I have a line kind of coming along there where my shadow is going to be. It won't really hurt it too much. But so I have that permanent yellow deep, and then I'm going to add a little permanent yellow orange on top. Kind of mimic what happened over here. And then I can kind of pull that out a little bit. And again, this is going to be under a shadow. So the fag, yeah, that helps a little bit. Also, it doesn't have to be perfect because this is hand drawn. Ugh.
Stand up.
How's everybody doing?
I just messed up my edge.
That's okay. A lot of times you can fix it later once it's dry. I'm really torn on this tree. I don't think it adds anything. That's the problem I've had with the tree on the other one I did. I'm not sure it adds anything. But I think I'm actually going to take it out. Luckily, it's just pencil, so. I think this wall will just come up kind of there. It just, yeah, it wasn't doing anything for that, so, for the composition.
Yep. Sorry, but I have to bail on you.
Okay. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Watch, next week I'm going to come back. And that tree's gonna be back there.
No.
Well, I'm kind of thinking this may be a good stopping spot. There's only, what, 3 minutes left till 9.
8:55.
8:55. Oh, I have 8:57. Oh, that's okay.
What's 2 minutes?
But I think I'm kind of at a good stopping point. And I don't want to get too far ahead. And not have enough time to, and not everybody had to leave a little bit earlier. I don't know if I like that tree or not. Now I'm torn. I liked it as a device to pull me this way. I don't know that it worked that well in my original painting, but I'm thinking that this line here may actually do that. It may actually work this way with all these kind of curves. So, and this line will pull me back over here. I think I'm gonna leave it out for now.
That leaves a pretty big space up there.
It does, but I think it's gonna be dark. It's gonna be a dark. I don't know. I'm gonna think about it for a week. Yeah, I think I'm gonna think about it for a week. I'm gonna make myself a note. We could do just a hint. I am going to do just a hint before I forget. I'm going to take some of that purple mix that I've got and maybe a little indigo, and I'm just going to hint in some of these edges real quick. There. Mostly this is just so I can remember to go there. This one sticks out a little bit more, so it's a little bit thicker. So I need to bring it over this way.
And you used what colors, Michael?
Right now, it's just the royal blue and quinacridone violet. So whatever sort of darkish blue and violet you have, and it's just making just a bit of a gray purple.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna mark in that line. There's a little bit of a lip right here that's gonna be. We'll go in and add them probably darker next week. But I'm just gonna I'm making these little notes really is what these colors are, just to help me remember these planes that I have here.
It's her birthday.
What's that? So that'll come in like that. Maybe switch over to a little indigo in here. I remember which way it is. But this little chunk sticks out just a little bit further, which is why it comes up a little, this shadow's a little there. Let's see, and this is coming in about. So basically, I'm just gonna kind of put these in real light. Obviously, they're dark, but they're lighter than they'll end up being. Just to kind of help me remember that they're there. I mean, I have my sketch right here, but I'll put a little bit in here. And this is just royal blue that I'm laying in right now. And I don't know that. I can't remember exactly how this kind of does something different. It comes down, so this comes down just a hint lower here. Let's fix that. This comes down just a bit lower there on this side, and then it's a bit higher on this side because of the difference in plane. Just gonna pull that across. Maybe I'll switch over to a little of that royal blue green mix. Hooker's green and royal blue. Right in here. Yeah. That's drying awfully quick on me. And again, if this doesn't feel dark enough next week, we can go in and add more. In fact, I know we'll have to. Let's see, I'm going to switch over to a slightly darker. I'm going to get some quinacridone violet and some indigo and kind of mix those together, make a slightly darker purple over here than that one that I was using here. That just helps us see that underside of the sort of more green, that green royal blue mix. And just have to run together a little bit better. A little water. Run all the way across. And I kind of screwed that up, but that's all right. It's going to be in shadow as well. So, yeah, I think that's where we'll leave it. This actually will end up being as dark as this, but for now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. As that's drying, I'll just go in and kind of pick that up. I think that's probably a pretty good spot to stop. How about you guys?
Yep, it's good for me.
Well, I guess with that, Oh, hey, Jeannie. Well, me.
I said hello.
Oh,
I've
did
been-
you?
About the last 45 minutes, I've just been watching.
Oh man, I didn't hear you say hello. I'm sorry. I just now looked over and saw that you were you were on there. Happy birthday.
Thank you. 69,
All right.
69 and holding.
There you go. That's what I think my grandmother always said. She was celebrating whatever anniversary of 49.
Well, I've been taught to say 50 plus, but
There you go. There you go.
70 now, so I better make reality.
I figured I've earned mine, so I don't mind being 70.
Well, I'm a great grandma, so it's okay.
Me too. Congratulations. So happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It was a good, big day.
Always celebrate being here another year.
Yes, exactly. Especially now, huh?
Yeah.
Did you get Phil to take you out? Good place to eat?
Well, actually, Phyllis fixes dinner. So,
Oh.
yeah, Phyllis and her kids.
That's awesome. Well, hopefully I'll get this up a little bit sooner. YouTube's been doing weird things. Taking a really long time to upload stuff.
Yeah.
I kept having that issue last week, so it was finally yesterday I got it to start. And I don't know if there were server issues. Anyway, I got it to start uploading, and I thought, well, this will usually an hour or so because it's a long, it's a big video.
Yeah.
And even this morning, it was still going. So I don't know.
My daughter's a computer network engineer, and she says that this 5G stuff they're implementing is causing a lot of problems in different arenas.
Oh, could be. Well, anytime you improve something, there's a little bit of a
Time period.
yeah, where they got to work the kinks out.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think this is a good stopping point. And I'll let you guys get on. Well, me, I'm gonna clean up and go home and go to bed because I'm exhausted. But I'll let you guys get on with your evening, and hopefully you all have a good rest of the week.
Great. All right. Thank you, Mike.
too.
Oh yeah,
Thanks, Michael.
Wait for your
y'all.
YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye. We'll see y'all next week.
Bye.
Bye.